Dear audience, good afternoon. I'm very happy to host today my special guest from United States, prominent novelist and political expert, Mr. Aaron Charpentier. Good afternoon, Mr. Charpentier.
Thanks for having me again, Mr. Katzian.
So today we recall the start of the full-scale Russian invasion into Ukrainian territory, which started 2 years ago. So would you be so kind to share your own thoughts and feelings when you initially learned about the war?
Oh, initially I was shocked, angry, saddened, depressed. I guess I felt kind of hopeless, nothing that I could do. And I think that's one of the things that motivated me to these interviews with you.
Mr. Charpentier, recently you gave your prominent lecture to the students of International Humanitarian University, and actually me as an organizer, I have received many positive feedbacks from students because you're really impressed with your knowledge and attitude. So could you please share your reflection about this lecture? Because as far as I know, you talked about moral imperatives, about democracy, about values. So please, and by the way, speak to the microphone. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so the lecture was on moral reasoning, and the topic was why should we believe in Western democracy? And I left it pretty much as an open-ended sort of question. My contention was basically to let the students learn something from it, and not really put an argument forward or a position on my part. And so I just thought that it was an important topic for these times that we're living in these days, with everything that's going on in America, with everything that's going on internationally in the Middle East, and of course, one of my main interests, my main interest and focus these days, the Ukraine war, the Russian invasion. So, I thought that also that it would be understandable if some Ukrainians began to question Western democracy, because I myself struggle with it sometimes, time to time, which is natural. Sometimes we have to, especially with what's going on in my own country that is supposed to be putting these values at the forefront of our life and our political system. Yeah, I just thought that. So again, but I think it's normal to struggle from time to time. Democracy isn't just some abstract idea, as one of my friends put it. It's something that lives and breathes within the very people that live in a democracy. Yes, again, I think sometimes having doubts or questioning something that you love or believe in only strengthens it. And one of the students was very surprised that I questioned it or struggled with it.
Mm-hmm. Recently, Mr. Tucker Carlson, a very prominent TV presenter, TV anchor from the United States, he took an interview. He interviewed Putin, and actually that interview scored millions of views among different states. And in that interview, Mr. Putin, he argued that United States refused to accept Russia in NATO and generally West closed the door in front of Russia's face. So, okay, we can't change what is already took place. So it is not possible to trace back the history and change something in history. But do you, as a political commentator, political analyst, think, or do you, or really agree with me that the West should do more in terms of binding Russia to the West in the 90s, when Russia was weak after the collapse of Soviet Union, and it was possible to integrate Russia in the Western order to prevent, let's say, something when we saw in Nazi Germany when Hitler came to power. So it was possible to prevent the restoration of dictatorship in Russia in case West would try to bundle Russia with the ties with Western democracy. What do you think about this?
I don't think so. I think that America and the West has done all they can to try to bring Russia into the Western system. And I don't think that and even before Putin, and I just don't think that it worked in any shape or form. And I don't think that it had anything to do with Russian culture or Eastern European culture. I think that look at South Korea, for instance. South Korea is a lot different from a lot of other countries, and even more different than Russia in a lot of ways. Well, before, prior to South Korea becoming a democracy, and Korea was welcomed into the Western democratic system, and is doing very well politically, economically. So I don't think that it's a question of a country or culture or I think that it's a question of leadership, and I think that a lot of the leaders in Russia, they just weren't able to embrace Western democracy like a lot of the leaders in some of the other democracies throughout the world that are culturally very different from Western European countries, and the religion is very different.
You know that Ukraine is coasting towards integration into European Union and into NATO. Actually, we have special provisions in the Ukrainian constitutions which stipulates that Ukraine should join NATO and the European Union. And we know that publicly, when Putin announced his aggression towards Ukraine, he justified his aggression on the fact that Ukraine is going to join NATO. Actually, he repeated this thesis while being interviewed by Carlson several weeks ago. And at the same time, still NATO and European Union keeps a closed door to Ukraine, and we don't know precisely when Ukraine is going to join the European Union and NATO. So how do you think maybe for Ukraine it would be much better to get rid of illusions about the West and rely only about itself, rely only on the, let's say, its military power, human power, economic power, and it's much better than rely on the West, which say on different occasions that Ukraine is going to be NATO and in the European Union, but at the same time, we don't hear the concrete dates.
I think that a strong Ukraine is a Ukraine that's part of NATO and part of the European. And I think that Ukraine needs to build its not only Ukraine needs to strengthen its institutions. And I think that the best way to do this is to be part of the European Union. One of the other subtopics that I talked about in that lecture that you spoke of was we talked about institutions, and I think that I think it's not I think that. Well, I don't want to get on another topic about institutions, but that's just a whole different interview in itself. But
I understand.
But I think that the best way to strengthen Ukraine's institutions is to go through the European Union, and I think that, and I'm talking about all the institutions, and I think that I think that one of Ukraine's strongest institutions, that's even stronger than a lot of Western institutions and North American institutions, is its family. Let's not forget that that's the most primary institution. I spoke about that during the lecture, and I think that Ukrainians are very family oriented, and I think that not only I think that it's people have to quit looking at Ukraine as just as some kind of handout or something. That's a handout. I think Ukraine is holding its own, and Ukraine can contribute a lot in a lot of ways in terms of values. I think that North Americans and Europeans have lost a lot of family values. I think that strong family values that Ukraine can bring that into Europe. I think after this war, I think that the problems that Ukraine had with corruption will definitely disappear, because I think that will be I won't say that it'll be non-existent. I mean, that's the corruption in every country, but I think that Ukraine will be willing to change, and Ukraine will be willing to make the sacrifices and to put in the work to become a strong part of NATO and the European Union. And I think that
but basically, Mr. Charpentier, if you go through different reports by European Commission, you will see that there is a very high level of corruption in many European states. But my question will be not about corruption, but about other thing. So that Ukraine on different occasions actually asked colleagues, partnering states from NATO, to help Ukraine in fighting Russian aggression. And it was said to Ukraine that it's not possible because Ukraine is not the member state of NATO. Yes? But at the same time, we have a recent example, which show an opposite. So 4 years ago, when there was a huge war between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and Azerbaijan tried to return back its territories, which were occupied by Armenia in Karabakh region. Turkey, being a member of NATO, but having a strategic relations with Azerbaijan, stations its jets, F-16s, in Azerbaijan, and actually let everybody knows that in case some states, Russia, for instance, try to involve in the conflict on Armenian side, then Turkish troops will be brought to Azerbaijan to fight on Azerbaijan side. Again, I would like to emphasize that Turkey is a member state of NATO, but Turkey did not ask any consent from NATO in order to help Azerbaijan in that conflict. So, but we see different situation regarding Ukraine. Nobody come to Ukraine to fight together with Ukraine with Russian invaders. So maybe there is not, let's say, a question of democracy and question of moral principle, because in Turkey we don't have democracy. Maybe this is a question of ratio, and the question is of the flexibility of decision making, that democracies are lacking a flexible decision making. What do you think?
Well, I think I think that the West has been pretty clear that if Ukraine was part of NATO and Russia attacked Ukraine, that the West would have to go to war with Russia, and I think the United States and Western Europeans don't want another world war. I mean, Biden has made that clear. A lot of Western European leaders have spoken on that.
Yeah, but yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I understand your position, but still, for Ukraine, it was crucially important and still crucially important to receive let's say, a military assistance, military aid from the West. And now what we see, US postponing military aid to Ukraine, Western Europe still, is very silent and very slow on, let's say, increasing the production of military in order to help Ukraine. And when it comes to Ukraine is really lacking, and Ukrainian army is really lacking in ammunition in order to fight back its territories. And that's why we have a stalemate and some setbacks of Ukrainian army in terms of Avdiivka, for example, in the eastern Ukraine. So this is due to the lack of, let's say, Western military aid. So, unfortunately, we see a procrastination from the West, and we want to understand why West procrastinate, in the process of helping Ukraine to fight Russian invaders.
Well, Western Europe procrastinated a lot at the beginning. I had complained about this in the past. I complained about this on several of our panels with some of our Austrian colleagues that really didn't have too much to say. But now the tables have turned, and now we see a delay in America. And I don't like to blame one particular party, but I mean, in this case, it's the Republican Party is holding it up in Congress, particularly Trump, and for his own political goals. This is Republican Party has has blood on its hands. And Reagan's daughter said that it's not the Reagan Republican Party anymore. Even she was really horrified the direction the Republican Party is going in, because there needs to be the same kind of unity between Democrats and Republicans that we had, that we saw from the start of the war. And division is going to weaken not only the international community, division in America, but weaken America, and it strengthens a lot of our adversaries, like Russia and Iran, and also China is a competitor to be really competitive with. We can't do that if we don't. So it's not just an issue with Ukraine. It's an issue even domestically, and as I've said before, all politics are domestic. I think.
Okay.
So I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, at the end of the interview, Mr. Charpentier, I would like to catch your point, and maybe I would like to ask you to let's say, to elaborate on this point about political leadership, that we are lacking political leadership in the world, and we are lacking such leaders as Ronald Reagan, as Margaret Thatcher, as Dwight Eisenhower, De Gaulle, other prominent figures. So why?
John F. Kennedy.
Well, John F. Kennedy as well. Yeah.
Churchill.
So why we lack such prominent figures in politics? So why let's say we see a kind of um, degrace of political leadership in the West, a kind of weakening of political leadership in the West. What do you think?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with just people becoming, more party oriented. A lot of it's a self interest. You have to be rather selfless to be a leader, and you have to even put some of your own. Sometimes you can believe in certain things personally, but sometimes you have to look at people that you're leading as well, obviously they're more important. So you have to put all self-interest and even some beliefs that you might have that you think might not be compatible with people that you're trying to lead, and that's just being selfless. Again, what I was talking about before about institutions, deterioration of institutions and of democracy. I don't think these days that we're not necessarily having. I guess I should reword it. Reword what I said. I don't think we're necessarily having a crisis with democracy. I think the actors in our democracies are just not being responsible, and they're not. They have to think beyond their parties as well, on their political parties, and think of the country's interest and the people's interest and the international community's interests, instead of going back and forth, with these party grievances on both sides. So I think until there's really, and again, it goes back to very basic family institution, and that's family values. And I think that we need stronger. To have better leaders, we need to have better, stronger family. The family institution needs to be stronger. And then I think then and only then can we really grow strong future leaders in America.
Mr. Charpentier, now we came to the last part of our interview, and I would like you maybe to finalize our talk by maybe sending a message to Ukrainian people, a supportive message to Ukrainian people in this upcoming third year of Russian invasion.
First of all, I would like to thank and honor all the soldiers that are fighting for their country, that are fighting for Western democracy, that are most of all that are fighting for their family, their own family, because that's first, and from there you fight for your country, fight for democracy as a whole, as a system. I would also like to, my heart goes out to all the people that passed away during this war, Ukrainian families who have lost brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. I just want to say that keep fighting because it's worth fighting for. Freedom is worth fighting for. The only alternative, if Ukraine loses, is Russian occupation. That's going to be absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare. So I know that it's highly unpopular to speak of victory, but I think that keeping Russia out of Ukraine, fight for Ukraine's future, for the future generations, and is extremely important. So Ukrainians need to stay strong. I know it's easy to say on this side of the world, and you know, I'm definitely I hope to visit Ukraine so that I can see everything firsthand and experience everything firsthand. And I've even spoken of possibly living in Ukraine if I could make that work. And in the meantime, fighting.
Mr. Charpentier, thank you very much for such inspiration. This is important for Ukrainian people and for our honorable audience. Would like to remind that today we hosted Mr. Aaron Charpentier, prominent U.S. novelist and political expert observer from United States. So thank you very much for your supportive speech, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again. It's always a great honor to speak to the Ukrainian people.
Thank you.